Starsector, one of my favorite indie games of all time. It's a sci-fi tactics game where you outfit and lead a fleet of ships, and then later on you manage colonies. Now, that's how I began the script to the first real video I'd ever uploaded to this channel. It was a labor of love, a somewhat scatterbrained passion project about a game I've wasted hundreds of hours in. When I made that video way back when, I purposefully didn't cover the main quest in any kind of serious detail. I wanted to leave it for other people, the small portion of the audience who might not have heard of the game and might have wanted to experience it for themselves for the first time. But recently, I'd been making my annual pilgrimage back to the game, you know how it is, and I noticed that there's a bit of a vacuum in my YouTube feed where content about Starsector's story should be. So I did a cursory search on the site, and lo and behold, I couldn't really find much in the way of long-form, structured conversation about the game's world and main plot. That's not to say that conversation about the game's story and world don't exist. I've seen some in-depth breakdowns on the subreddit and forum regarding it. But ostensibly, to an outsider, this is the game where you drift your spaceship with your 2D GF and watch the funny white lights happen. And I love that part of it, minus the weeb thing. The game is primarily about managing your resources, outfitting your ships, and getting into pitched battles. I can understand why bolting a text adventure onto a game like that might not appeal to a vast portion of the audience, or why the conversation surrounding it might not make up the vast majority of fan-produced media, or why the Galatia plotline might just become a barrier between you and that thing that you get at the end of it. But Starsector's story has some substance. The game could have gotten away with just outlining the setting here and there, then letting you loose like the little gremlin you are to play with your toys within that sandbox. However, there is a legitimate, well-read, competently constructed sci-fi thriller at the core of this game. So I figured, why the hell not? I'm replaying Starsector again anyways. Might as well outline what really captivates me about the story from tip to tail. We're going to be talking about relevant developer blogs, fun mythological references, and some of Starsector's deeper mysteries. If you've seen my previous videos on the game, we're probably going to retread some familiar territory, but don't worry, there's plenty we haven't gone over yet. Oh, and all of this was recorded pre-098. Of course, the exact moment I decide to return to this game, they decide to update the damn thing. But thankfully, none of the new stuff affected the Galatia plotline, so it really won't cover the purview of this series. Before we get going here, I do want to say that if you haven't played it, and if at any point anything about Starsector grabs your interest, stop watching the video and go buy the game. It's a fun ride, and I think it's a worthy enough experience to consider going in blind. Alright, that's enough waffling. Music and mod lists will be in the pinned comment. Let's start with a little history lesson, shall we? The human domain. The widest reaching civilization made by human hands. We're never directly told how large the holdings of the domain are, but we can make an educated guess. The Persean sector is referred to as a backwater, which is sorta nuts in and of itself. All the production and population centers, thousands upon thousands of lives, just one sector on the fringe of the empire. Holy shit. But that name, the Persean sector, the Persean Orion Abyss, the Persean arm of the galaxy. If you're a smooth brain like me, you might not have put that one together right away. Okay, so our solar system is located roughly around here, which means the scale of the domain could potentially look something like this. Got it. Now, space is big. Really big. You don't build an interstellar empire on the small fry tech we've got now. You might be able to slowly access the solar systems in your immediate area, but everything beyond a significant distance is going to be a slog. You can't maintain a traditional government on those terms. No, you need something else. Something to shrink up the massive gulf between all the stuff. Faster than light, ants on a log, or whatever. If you're a dork, you know what I'm talking about here.
Like a gate?
Sure, like a gate.
The gates. Massive constructs, operating and interacting with forces only loosely understood in the current era of the setting. Capable of moving entire fleets of starships from one point in space to another, basically instantaneously. So you build two. Strap one to a giant rocket that you can move faster than the speed of light, point it at a destination, and send it. When it arrives, however long that takes, the gate is deployed. Send your fleet through, and if there's already people down there from some previous colonization effort, bigger stick diplomacy them. If not, start laying down foundations for a colony. Repeat ad nauseum. This is how the domain built and maintained its empire. But does this seem sort of tenuous to anybody else? I mean, it's not theoretically different than, say, a highway being destroyed, but what would happen if these things were to... The collapse. The gates are suddenly and mysteriously disabled. No communication can be made with the greater empire if it's even still out there. Alright, I'm sure this is just some kind of regular maintenance. Let's just wait this one out. And so days turn into weeks, weeks turn into months, months turn into years, and they ain't coming back on. Everybody panics. There's wars, various factions fighting for their little slice, deaths in the untold thousands. This is compounded by the fact that many of the leading scientific experts of the age wouldn't have been hanging out in some far-flung corner of the empire. We're also dealing with a serious backsliding of technological progress here. There's a lot of history that we'll get into later, but fast forward around 2 centuries, and humanity in the Persean sector is still keeping the candle burning. And that's where our story begins. In the extended wake of the greatest downfall in human history. If Starsector's world had an equivalent to Twitter, there'd probably be dudes with marble statues as their profile pictures posting little Dark Age edits like 24/7. Before we can begin the game proper, we gotta create a character. I'm using the Battletech Portraits pack by Chozo, so we're sort of spoiled for choice. Dr. Nefarious here was in the running for quite a while, but I ultimately landed on this fella. That intense look, the slightly greasy hair, the decorated military uniform. Oh yeah, that's my guy. Meet Guy MONTENAS. We're an ex-Hegemony officer, probably dishonorably discharged for one reason or another. Now we lead a crew of freelancers and explore the far reaches of space, looking for ruins to salvage. There were dozens of colonies that populated this stretch of space, and not all of them survived the crucible that was the collapse. The main bastion of civilization in the sector are the core worlds, where all of the major factions of the game can be found. Just beyond the closest stars are countless dead and abandoned worlds, whole planets whose populations languished and died in silence, cut off from the rest of the sector when the supply lines came crashing down. There is now a minor industry dedicated to tracking down these worlds and plumbing the wreckage for useful scrap and tech. This is one of our fields of work. It's lucrative and sadly not an uncommon profession. Our other main body of work is bounty hunting. Plenty of ne'er-do-wells use the cover of unexplored space to hide from Johnny Law. When local defense forces are too tied up with keeping the peace at home, they issue a general reward for anyone who can send home footage of themselves blowing the bad guys to smithereens. We do a fair bit of that too. The makeup of our fleet is a little scatterbrained given our odd lines of work. Science and survey vessels burn into battle alongside rough and tough rogues. Refit civilian ships, surplus military runoffs, and salvaged wrecks. Budget options and cost-effective alternatives. Our bread and butter. We take our losses here and there, but we're getting by. As long as we're talking about the fleet, we might as well get combat up and out of the way right up front. Ships come in all shapes and sizes. Each ship has a flux meter. Think of that as your ship's battery. Everything in combat costs flux, firing weapons, taking hits on your shield if you got one, activating some ship's special ability. It all costs flux. When that bar is full, you're overloaded, dead in the water. Don't let it happen. You choose a ship to manually pilot and direct engagements while the rest of your armada is controlled by the AI. Blow up the other guy before he does the same to you. And save scum. Often. Simple enough to learn, but somewhat difficult to master. One of the defining things about Starsector's combat is the loadout system. Ships have a predefined spread of weapon mounts, but outside of that, you're free to customize a ship to your heart's content. In general, it's good to play to a ship's strengths and to be aware of its weaknesses. Ships with heavy armor or shields are probably better at tanking. Fast and maneuverable ships with poor defenses are going to be better as hit-and-run skirmishers. Individual ships can be strong, but you got to be thinking about how your fleet will function together. Apes together strong. This is the deeper strategic level to combat. Sizing up the enemy from a distance, deciding how your fleet will fare against them, getting that juicy, deeper game knowledge about what certain models of ships are capable of. Some battles will be decided well before you ever meet the enemy. On this screen. Do you know how many goddamn hours I've spent looking at this screen? I want to say that like half of my total playtime was spent in dry dock, testing out random loadouts. There's just so many possibilities, even more with mods. Missiles for limited burst damage, kinetic bullet hoses, advanced and exotic energy weapons, things like dumbfire high payload rockets, armor-stripping rotary guns, ion cannons for disabling enemy weapons and engines. Endless combinations. Like a big bucket of Legos, or Spore if it was good. The only limitations are, again, the ones the make and model of your vessel impose on you. From there, go nuts. If you're one of those people who tries to optimize your build in most RPGs, this is like heroin. It's addictive. Consider yourself warned. My personal ship of choice is the Griffin. It's the ultimate missile boat. It's a bit hindered by poor defensive capability and for relying on weapons with a limited ammo reserve, but if you play carefully, spend your skill points appropriately, and pick your targets, it's not really a problem. Shit, slap a hammer torpedo in that large mount and you're basically flying a cruiser-sized blunderbuss. The main faction we're finding work with at this point in the game is the Hegemony. When the gate system went down way back when, the 14th battle group of the Domain Armada was stranded at a transfer point, somewhere near the Persean sector. It took them 48 years, but they eventually were able to limp their way into the area, stripping whatever outposts they ran into along the way of their resources and scrapping or abandoning a lot of the elements of the fleet that couldn't make the journey. When they arrived in the sector, the battle group immediately declared martial law and superseded the authority of local governments, scooping up a good portion of the core systems in the process. Now, you gotta remember, some time had passed since the collapse at this point, almost 50 years. That's enough for a generation to be born and grow old. There was certainly a tremendous deal of strife, but there was still plenty of time for some local groups to get their shit together and form their own independent governments. For the soldiers of the 14th, however, the crisis was still fresh. They made most of the journey to the area under extended cryosleep. What this essentially meant is that there was a bit of a clearing of the land that needed to be done when they arrived. The biggest example of this was the planet Myrath in the Myasura system, a carefully terraformed world with 3 massive space stations in its orbit, a population center that was home to millions. The planet was brought to ruin when a terrorist cell sabotaged one of the stations and brought it crashing to the planet's surface, ruining the carefully nurtured paradise that the Myasurans had built and starting the collapse of its biosphere and perfect weather patterns. In the modern era, the planet is a blasted, desertic wasteland, populated by the desperate ancestors of the original colonists. Now, you might be thinking to yourself at this point, what does the Hegemony have to do with all this? Well, it just so happens that one of their war fleets was in the system at the time and proceeded to mop up the remains of the Myasuran Navy, as they were attempting to provide what little aid they could to their ruined homeworld. Rumors still circulate that claim that the Hegemony backed the orchestrators of the Myrath plot. Nothing was ever confirmed, but the presence of the Hegemony battle group at the site of the incident can't be ignored. Myasura certainly represented a roadblock and competing power in the face of the Hegemony's plans for expansion. You can actually play this climactic battle from the mission screen on the main menu. In fact, a good portion of these missions depict interesting moments from the sector's history. They serve as fun additional content on top of the small side stories that provide a lived-in feeling to the world. Sweet, but to get back on topic, the Hegemony would go on to fight a series of conflicts with competing powers in the sector. Over the years, they've carved out a sizable portion of the inhabited worlds for their own. Their description on the faction relations screen says that their government is made up of civilian hierarchies that govern planets and stations, but that they're all ultimately subservient to the military at the end of the day. The foundation for the Hegemony legal system was built on a loose reinterpretation of old domain emergency protocols. Like, technically this is one extended emergency, right? No? What the fuck are you talking about? Okay, cool. Glad we agree. Martial law is now in place forever. In the eyes of some, they're a militaristic authoritarian state that is holding back progress in the region. In the eyes of others, they're a unifying force whose ultimate goal is to enforce law and stability in the face of an unimaginable crisis, albeit to the detriment of some personal liberties. There's almost certainly some truth to both of these positions. It's easy enough to lambast the boys in orange, but when you consider the general disarray caused by the collapse and the alternative governments in the region, I'd say the situation gets a little more complex. Not that I'm condoning and extolling the virtues of a militaristic state constantly at war with one dissident faction or another. The collapse simply represented a major breakdown of law and order, and the Hegemony is an extreme remedy to an extreme problem. There's even the fun little detail that the 14th battle group contained elements of the Domain 200th Legion, who historically lost a claim when portions of the force mutinied in the face of a series of rebellions pre-collapse. To put it plainly, the original battle group most definitely contained some members who had something to prove. To put it even more plainly, when all you've got is a disgraced, self-conscious hammer, every problem suddenly looks like a seditious little nail. When we've turned enough pirates into debris and looted our fair share of defunct colonies, I decide it's time to settle one of our own. We're floating well over 1 million credits at this point, and that's more than enough to lay down the essential infrastructure any successful settlement needs. Colony management is the other money sink in the game besides expanding and maintaining your fleet. The concept is relatively simple. This isn't a 4X game, well, unless you want it to be. Keep the stability of your planets relatively high, try to fulfill the requirements of one colony with the production of another. The in-game economy is actually functional and isn't static. If trade fleets carrying essential supplies or food to a world are hit by raiders, it means a drop in stability on that world, and a heavy demand for the commodities that they lack. This goes for your colonies too. So keep your system fairly safe and invest generously in the proper infrastructure. Money spent early in a colony's life, if spent correctly, will pay dividends when the world is fully developed later. The early game is usually spent scouting out the closest star systems in search of quality planets, places with quality resource deposits, and in a good proximity to the rest of civilized space. This desert-type planet was in the running for a while, but extreme weather conditions, extensive ruins, mineral deposits aren't great. No, this isn't the one. They probably got their own problems going on down there. There might be an international extraterrestrial arms race underway where various world governments are all trying to reverse engineer this stuff. Is he talking about aliens?
UAP crash retrieval program?
That's not. Yes. The fuck are those videos even about?
Hold on, wait, I've got some questions for him.
Whatever. After we've thoroughly explored the closest constellations, I decide on the Mehet star system. This place wouldn't normally be ideal for colonizing, but with terraforming and station construction installed, it's a little more doable. For a generous sum of credits and materials, we can put a siphon station in orbit of one of these gas giants. Terraforming in this mod is a tad OP in my opinion, so we're not going to be messing with it too much. My intention with settling an early colony was to set myself up with a consistent stream of income with which to tackle the rest of the game. While it's still in its fledgling state, however, we're running at a deficit. We've got a negative balance at the end of every pay period, and we're in the market for some steadier work. While picking up some supplies at Syndria, we run into an academician at a local bar. Captain Guy MONTENAS, he says. Don't look surprised, you've got a fascinating reputation to, shall we say, movers and shakers in the sector over. Oh man, this guy's really buttering me up. He goes on to tell us that the Galatia Academy, one of the only higher learning and research centers in the sector, has a new provost. Says that the previous chief executive was ousted after some kind of embarrassing incident involving destabilizing jump points. To fresh blood, my enemies slaughtered and their lands conquered, isn't that right? That's sort of a strange way to refer to there being a new dean at the local college. Come to Galatia Academy. Meet with Provost Baird. She has a vision for the future, Captain. Hear what she has to say. Keep an open mind. We came into this conversation expecting a job offer, but the tone of this exchange is a little more commanding? Ideological? Odd, but we're not exactly in a position to be choosy with our work. We promptly head over to the Galatia system to see what's in store for us. The Galatia Academy isn't just a college. It's a stable, neutral learning institution in a setting where technological progress has been set back significantly. They're one of the only places attempting to dig humanity out of the dark age that it's stuck in, all under the watchful eye of the Hegemony tech inspectors. Many wealthy oligarchs from the most powerful factions also send their kids here to get a decent education and a fancy diploma to put up on the wall to impress their friends. This positions the head of such a facility in a prime place to make some significant demands, in exchange for generous concessions given to whatever spoiled brat walks through the door, of course. When we mention Baird's name to the secretary in the landing bay, they regard us with the patience you would to any old idiot asking to speak with, like, the president or something. Yeah, the new provost is very, very busy. Leave your comms ID and someone will... They're cut off by the chime of their comms unit. Yes? Really? I mean, yes, we'll come up immediately. Provost Baird will see you. Right now. Please, follow me, Captain. Greetings. Welcome, Academician, and thank you for accessing the Galatia Academy archival systems. I am a sub-gamma level AI program, designation MUF-T0P. I have been assigned to assist you in cataloging data as part of your regular duties with the Contemporary History Department. I'm sorry, but this terminal is currently only capable of audio playback, in compliance with a routine Hegemony security examination. In order to preserve the context of any video logs accessed during your usage of this system, I am authorized to provide a summarization of relevant visual cues that might be pertinent to your comprehension of the events presented. A more detailed description of any person of interest, location, or object is available upon request. Thank you, and have a nice day.
Guy is led to an antechamber filled with small groups waiting to meet with the provost. Many have brought their young progeny with them. The stench of wealth and influence is palpable. Heads turn as Guy is led past all of them towards a set of large doors. Ancient wooden shelves for real paper books gleam darkly in subdued light emanating tastefully from nowhere. The shelves are only half-stocked from crates scattered around the office. Parchments mounted behind the provost's desk display intimidating intellectual rankings. I apologize for the mess. I've only just moved office. You're not here to set up a donation. Why then? Because it is very much in my interest to know about the up-and-coming mercenary captain who is capable of reversing the unfortunate situation created by my ambitious but incautious predecessor. This institution is not devoted purely to theoretical work. For what use is knowledge if it does not give us the power and wisdom to change the world for the better? The Galatia Academy could use someone like you, someone capable, discreet, and very well paid. I do not wish to make the same mistake as my predecessor. If one wants work done properly, appropriate incentive must be provided.
I'm interested. What do you need done?
I shall put you in contact with academician Alvis Sebastian. He will be my liaison to you. You will receive a few mundane tasks from various departments in the Academy, so that we may build a working rapport, and provide you with the funds necessary to bring your fleet up to my standards. Most of all, I require evidence of trust. I intend to remain provost here for a long time, and productive relationships are built on trust. We'll speak again before long, I'm sure. She looks out of dimmed windows at the great halls of the Galatia Academy. Below lies the canyon-like sweep of plazas, filled with crowds of students, academics, and technicians. Anahita Baird smiles. You cannot imagine what we shall accomplish. An Academy agent quietly exports Guy back to the landing promenade. The captain opens his comm directory and enters the credentials he'd been given for academician Sebastian.
Hello, it's you. My name is Alvis Sebastian, the new provost, that is Provost Baird, assigned me to be your liaison with the Academy, and I hope you're as excited to work with me as I am to be working with you.
Yes, nice to meet you, academician.
Right, yes. Different departments within the Galatia Academy tell me what they need done. Then I coordinate with freelancers like yourself to procure the necessary services. Oh, and I run jobs by the finance office. We have to make sure you get paid. That's very important. At any time, there may be various jobs open to you, or sometimes there might be no jobs if they're all fulfilled. But it looks like Provost Baird wants you to have first priority. She must like you. All right, let me look at what we got lined up for you today.
Our first couple jobs with the Academy are simple enough. We're supposed to recover some kind of artifact and drop off some researchers at a remote outpost. It'll be a bit of a hike outside the core, but it's nothing we aren't accustomed to. But hey, this seems like a steady stream of income if we keep it up. That Anahita Baird is a bit of a character, though. She didn't even introduce herself, just assumed we knew who she was. Which, I mean, we did, but that's besides the point. Did you notice that she was still in the process of moving into her office, but made sure her diplomas were prominently displayed? The fuel that we've been picking up now and again isn't just like gasoline. Specifically, it's composed of antimatter fuel in fullerene shells, mixed in a semi-stable foam with heavy isotopes of hydrogen. Our ships really don't need this exotic stuff to traverse through normal space. Now, this stuff is for entering into and operating in hyperspace. Hyperspace is a loosely understood layer of reality that seems to exist on top of our own. Like I said, space is big. So it's really helpful to have access to a place that shrinks the effective distance between everything. To use an unelegant metaphor, you can think of it like using the nether to travel between two places in Minecraft. What might be millions of miles of empty void in real space will probably only be like a quarter of that in hyperspace. Which, mind you, is still an incredible distance to travel. There's a reason the clock in the top left of the screen is measured in days. Crossing from core system to core system might take you a week or so, but salvage expeditions can stretch on for months if you're doing it right. Really puts things in perspective. There's a fairly obvious nautical thing going on with this place, between voyages lasting months and the weird congealed pockets of deep hyperspace with, like, thunderstorms. That and the music really sells this I'm leading my intrepid crew across dark waters vibe. It should also be noted that entering hyperspace with your fleet manually, like through one of these stable points, is an outdated way of doing things. The gates interacted with hyperspace too, and they were capable of moving ships almost instantaneously. Moving between systems like this was probably the realm of maintenance workers and military professionals. There's that damn Dark Age again. If you haven't played Starsector or are above a certain age and this is all sounding frightfully familiar to you, that's almost certainly because you've played Star Control 2. It's listed as one of the dev team's inspirations for the game. If you stare at Starsector long enough, you'll eventually realize it's sort of a version of Star Control that presents itself a little more self-serious. Explore the galaxy, interact with weird cultures, survey planets for resources, get into instanced battles, and haul everything back to port to sell your junk and rearm. Sound familiar? Yeah, this isn't going to be the last time I bring up Star Control 2 either.
I want to live forever, with no pain whatsoever, owning vast personal property, plus a company of nubiles.
Oh. When we arrive at the supposed location of the Academy Research Outpost, we can't seem to get a response on comms from the base. We do a sweep of the area and eventually locate the thing. It's bad news. The facility has been hit by anti-tech terrorists called Pathers. We'll get into them more later, but suffice to say that them finding a base doing crazy advanced, possibly illegal science probably didn't turn out so great for the Team Planet side. An observation drone reveals that research equipment was piled outside the base and slagged by a combination of explosives and hand weapons. One poor soul, the research lead, judging by the nearby ID fob, is found executed in the central annex amid scrawled Pather slogans. Yikes. We collect what useful information we can from the site and log it for Alvis. Let's try to at least complete one of our first missions and locate that derelict artifact. We scan around the nearby target system for a bit and eventually locate our prize. A wrecked vessel from who knows how long ago. But bad news. Looks like someone else hit this ship first. It's been fairly thoroughly scavenged for parts. We scour it for our mission objective, but whatever we're here to locate is clearly gone. The wreckage is still hot from when they cut into the hull, meaning whoever scrapped it is probably still in system. We burn hard for the nearest jump point, hoping to cut our competitors off at the pass, which thankfully we're able to do. It's a tense meeting, but we manage to haggle with the captain of the independent salvage fleet. We tap a key in our console, transfer the guy 12,000 credits, and part amicably. Fair's fair. Our kickback from Galatia should cover these operating costs, after all. In an effort to bolster our funds a bit, I'm forced to reach into what amounts to any respectable scavenger's retirement fund. My secret stash of highly illegal AI cores. In the future of Starsector, humanity eventually did manage to math out higher-level intelligence AI. The domain utilized them extensively outside of civilized space, hooking them up to crewed probes and drones, and using them as autonomous survey fleets. It seems like they were tightly regulated in the domain, and they were effectively banned from the sector post-collapse. A whole war was fought over it when the branch of the Tritachyon megacorporation stranded in the area developed a fleet of warships with AI cores at their helms. This was the first AI war and is sort of like the sector's World War I analog. Every faction in the game got involved on one side or another, but the Hegemony eventually bludgeoned Tritach for long enough for them to admit defeat. Hegemony technological inspections are now enforced at large, and Tritach's AI warfleets were scattered to the fringes of the sector, uselessly patrolling vacant systems, unable to meaningfully interact with the environment around them outside of using their high-tech weaponry to blow perceived interlopers into tiny little bits. Now, that summation is the straightforward history on the matter, but the reality is a little more complicated. A common piece of wisdom in the modern era is that restricting people's access to a commodity only creates an underground market for it. That's sort of an immutable law of supply and demand. You'll still encounter gamma, beta, and alpha level AI cores fairly frequently on salvage runs. They're capable of processing information leagues faster than any human mind could. In game terms, they're useful for optimizing the production of your industries or for being the administrators of whole colonies. They can even pilot warships if they've got the automated ship tag. Most factions will take them off your hand for some combination of reputation gain and credits, with Tritachyon paying out the most credits for them. Useful piece of kit, these little guys, worth a bunch of cash and you don't even have to pay them. Now, saying that, it does sort of remind me of a very particular episode of Next Gen.
He's talking about slavery.
The game does directly say that the domain considered even gamma-level AI cores intelligent. Now, intelligence isn't necessarily the same thing as sentience or sapience, but alpha-level AI cores are a different story. An alpha can create art which perfectly simulates human pathos. plausibly debate any philosophical position, and form what appear to be deep and meaningful bonds with human beings. Alphas have been known to perform elaborate jokes built over years which can only be appreciated due to the intention that a particular human subject become cognitive of the whole at a specific time and context. That is a load-bearing usage of the phrase "what appear to be." I should make it clear that I think the specific wording of these descriptions is intentional. AI in this setting might be a form of life and intelligence that is just not understood or accepted by humanity. Or they could be machines that are just particularly apt at mimicking human behavior, doubly so in the case of alphas. The question here, I'm sure, is,
does Data have a soul?
They're prone to going rogue, can go a bit nuts, and are capable of extreme violence. But hey, so are we.
Oh man, that's deep.
All I'm saying is that if you put my brain in a little sphere and I existed solely as a consciousness with no corporeal body, under heavy and constant scrutiny, with a bomb strapped to my container, I'd develop some weird behavioral quirks too. You know, the next batch of Terminators are going to be neurodivergent. Oh, thank God.
Oh, Captain, you have no idea how worried Orbital Architecture was about this, unique superconducting structural element. Yeah, that's what it was. They'll be delighted when I let them know that you found it. First, though, I'll let the finance office know to release your payment.
When all's said and done, we make a tidy profit, enough to cover the operating costs of the fleet and invest back in our colony. For the following months, we augment our usual work with these Academy missions, growing our business venture in Savenberg Station and establishing our working relationship with Baird. Most of our work for them involves retrieving data or personnel from out in the sector. One, however, involves recovering an unfortunate scientist from the custody of some pirates on Don. They're holding the poor guy for ransom, and we've got to go get him out.
Oh, it's just so dangerous out there. You know, pirates, space battles, cannibals, meteorites.
Cannibals?
Oh, I only read about it. There was a desperate situation outside the core. Nothing was ever really proven, depending on which report you're going by, but it's more likely the records were destroyed. But the way it goes is the crew ran out of supplies, and the captain, where was I?
Alvis says if we can find some alternative way to free the researcher, we're welcome to hold on to the ransom money.
Don't worry. I can be very persuasive. No. It's all very simple, you see. It's top bun, peanut butter, jam, peanut butter, bottom bun. What is it that you don't understand?
Oh, come on now. You're just wasting food. And I ain't even gonna entertain the idea that all that PB ain't sticking to the roof of your mouth when you're enjoying that sandwich.
Well, it's simply the way that the staff in the cafeteria delivers it. It's not my preferred arrangement, but it is what it is.
See, that's your issue. A thing like that is best enjoyed when you make it with your own hands, preferably in the earlier hours of the morning and operating under the fading effects of a low-grade narcotic substance. It's a balm for the soul, a constant, a reminder of simpler times.
Mr. Freight, it's a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. What you're talking about is nostalgia. This is just food.
It doesn't have to be. It is what you make it.
Good heavens, Johnny. Never mind that. Now, if you excuse me, I'm going to make use of the bucket. Look away. Oh, for God's sake, what now? I cannot possibly utilize the facilities while that damnable alarm is ringing. Oh, guard! Guard! What is going on out there?
Shut up and get back in your cell, baby.
Oh, some idiot in the control room probably fell asleep with his fat finger on the alarm button again. I swear, these buffoons couldn't...
Wait a minute, you hear that? Listen. Something's happening.
Good God!
Shh, stay quiet.
Academician Noel Arenome? Present?
Oh, come on.
Stand back from the door.
Oh, hell, get down!
Academician, we're here to extract you and return you to the Academy.
Who the hell is he?
Doesn't matter. We're just here for the lab coat.
What?
No, unacceptable. I've grown a certain fondness for Mr. Freight's company during our internment here, and I won't leave him.
Doc, those aren't our orders. No time, Noel. You're leaving. Now.
If Johnny stays, so do I. Orders or no?
Fine, I don't have time to argue, but we got no room for dead weight. Keep your heads down and hurry both your asses back down the corridor. There's a second squad waiting there to take you back to the boarding craft.
Understood? Thank you, gentlemen.
Fellas. Alright, on to our secondary objective. We gotta hit the security station in this sector. Kowalski, you're gonna recover and purge the logs. What does Command want with some pirate outfit security footage anyways? Hell if I know. Shit, Sarge probably wants it so he can grill me on my cornering again.
We return the wayward scientist back to his job on Galatia and put our work at the Academy on pause for now. I'd say that we've kept up our end of Baird's bargain well enough to buy us some time to shop around for ships. She did ask us to bring our fleet up to her standards, after all. On Asharu, we commission a black market dealer for a custom-constructed battlecruiser, a Conquest. That ought to be enough broadside-capable firepower to face down any trickier fights going forward. It won't be done for another 60 days, 2 full months, so we've got some time to kill. After we get done chatting with our new compatriot, an old man approaches us to charter passage with us. He's an old dusty hermit with a young mop-haired kid and a robot in tow. The kid rambles on about power converters or whatever for a good minute, so we eventually just agree to ferry them to where they're going. Volturn, in the Syndrian Diktat. Around the 160th year following the collapse, the sector is caught unaware when a rogue domain warfleet arrives in the core. It wasn't clear where the fleet came from, but one thing was. The warfleet, led by a man named Onesimus Loke, plans to raid and pillage any system in their path. They captured or destabilized a few colonies and mining stations unlucky enough to be caught in their wake, but are eventually scattered by a rising star within the Hegemony, Philip Andrada. Following his victory over Loke, the Hegemony turns Andrada into a symbol. War heroes are most definitely good for Hegemony morale. Let's jump forward a bit. 20 years later, collapse plus 180. The Asconia system is a prominent independent power, located smack dab in the middle of the core, and is currently in the bloody midst of a civil war. An oppositional power to the Hegemony called the Persean League is courting Asconia for membership in their alliance. More on them later, but suffice to say the Hegemony wasn't having any of it. They send a response fleet, objective unstated, to put the kibosh on any consideration of that particular outcome. There seems to have been only one man to lead the campaign, and it just so happens to be the same guy who the Hegemony recruiting hollows spent the last 20 years hyping up, Andrada. He's only deployed in the system for around a year before the unthinkable occurs.
All right, fire!
Captain stood up from his chair and asked again that it was a PK deployed against Opus. Junior lieutenant on sensors confirmed. Captain asked once more, like he was angry at the fact of it, and it was still true. In one quick motion, the old man pulls his sidearm and shoots himself in the head, right there. Blam. And everyone on the bridge was stunned for a moment. It felt like forever with just the small arms alarm going, and then shouting. Then some kind of bomb went off, I think, and there was more gunfire. CP arcs across the holotank. I remember that. The beams sparkled through the smoke. It was chaos.
A planet killer, a weapon of unimaginable scale and power, is deployed on Opus, the capital and population center of the Asconia polity. To continue to quote the Fractal Softworks blog, Andrada blames rebels blame Andrada, other rebels blame each other, and others blame outside agents. Nobody was ever really sure who killed the millions of civilians down on Opus. Regardless of whether or not he pulled the trigger, the Hegemony's presence seemed to at the very least intensify the conflict. In response to the atrocity, the Hegemony immediately tries to recall the fleet. Instead, Phil goes rogue. Most of the fleet goes with him, but a faction within his battle group stays loyal to the Hegemony. The mutineers proceed to wipe them out in a climactic battle in orbit of Syndria, within their vessels and without. Philip Andrada is declared Diktat Executor, the sole dictator of the newly christened Syndrian Diktat. They're your classic military dictatorship. Infrastructure, collapsing. Quality of life, low. They've even got the weird obsessive leader's pet project, like Castro and his cows. Except Andrada's cows are modified vessels with ridiculous high-tech weaponry. Sure, the flux grid is hilariously overstressed and critical maintenance systems have been made harder to access and repair, but just look at that slick white coat of paint. Some time ago, we were actually approached by an officer of the Diktat. We were picking up gas at Syndria, and he rambled on about some grand plan to save the Diktat, asked us to meet him in a safe house on Volturn to discuss the plan further. The guy wasn't one to get involved at the time. Saving Andrada's overblown vanity project isn't on our short list of priorities, but since we're ferrying Duke Skygawker and Old Glenn Shinobi or whatever to Volturn anyways, we might as well look up the guy while we're in the neighborhood. First things first, we gotta ensure our passengers arrive securely at their destination and soak up a bit of the local atmosphere while we're here. The planet's description in-game says it was originally, quote, envisioned as a planet of agriculture and leisure to service the now annihilated capital city moon of Opus. It's a water world with massive floating arcologies and unique, genetically modified sea life, namely the Volturnian lobster, a well-cherished community meme and a rare delicacy. When Opus was PK'd, there was a refugee crisis, and thousands of people were distributed to the other planets of the Asconia system. In the wake of the catastrophe, Volturn was transformed from an idyllic getaway into just another overpopulated pressure cooker waiting to explode. The Diktat garrison presides over a world of stinking algae farms and floating slums, hotbeds of resistance movements, esoteric cults, and criminal syndicates. This must be why that officer we ran into, Yannick Ram, chose the place for his secret safe house. It's sort of the place to be as far as clandestine, shady operations go. We drop the snot-nosed kid and old man off to their contact's planet side and prepare to meet with Ram. We make sure to go in wired up. Recording the whole interaction is probably the smart thing to do. We meet with our armorer to discuss bringing a weapon of some kind, but we decide not to. We're not planning on killing the guy. No, that would only lead to more trouble. No harm in just having a little chat. Our shuttlecraft follows the flight path laid out for us by local traffic control, which brings us to the logistics and warehouse district of one of the major arcologies. We're relieved of our sidearm and led into a basement-level room where Yannick is already waiting for us. He wastes no time in laying out his elaborate plan. He wants to test the loyalty of prominent members throughout the executive positions of the Diktat. While Ram's busy getting into the specifics, there's a thump outside the door. Ram goes quiet, and then all of a sudden, goons with rifles in hand flashbang and breach the room. Before we can react, a man in a long black coat puts a round right between Yannick Ram's eyes. Smiling, Dolos Macario, the head of the Syndrian Internal Security Ministry, steps over Ram's corpse and sits. He'd like to have a word with us. We comply. Macario goes on to say that although he was a filthy traitor, Ram's plan wasn't so bad. So, we're still going forward with it. Guy's first question is naturally, what's in it for me? To which Dolos' response is to transfer us 40,000 credits and 3 kinetic blasters. He promises that this is only a taste of the influence, credits, advanced spacecraft hulls, and experimental weapons that would be our reward for helping him. You know, this guy knows how to talk our language. We just have to oust or test the loyalty of his political opposition within the Diktat. There's actually a good deal of deliberation that follows this initial proposition. I probe him a lot about his exact goals with this plan, and he's unexpectedly forthcoming.
Once the means of force are purged of traitors, they shall burn out the rot that has taken root in this great project. The so-called Volturnian resistance and the double blight of Norsa and Umbran rebellion. Once our power base in Asconia is consolidated, the Diktat may turn its gaze outward. What do you mean by turn its gaze outward? You didn't get to your position without knowing the meaning of ambition, Captain. You, of all people, know full well that ambitions will be attacked on all sides by lesser men, whether from brutish ignorance or degenerate ideologies. The sector is in turmoil. Imagine if its might and resources were focused by the vision of a man with ambition. Does Andrada know of this plan? That question is no longer relevant.
Oh shit.
The question now is of who is prepared to carry on in his name. And why would I want to help you? An interesting question, Captain. You are a rising independent power. Such shifts, even small, have a way of upsetting the balance kept so carefully these past cycles. Do you understand how you instill fear into strategic planners? Your motives are erratic. You could do anything. It's perfect. What do you want done? Hypothetically.
I don't know about this. Macario was fairly upfront about his larger aims here, but something doesn't smell right. Plus, this is a pretty high concept for us, no? Helping a psychopath with loose morals consolidate his shadow government? I just wanted to kill some time here, for God's sake. This is like waiting to get your oil change and winding up standing over a dead body while getting a regime change elevator pitch from the guy with the gun in his hand. I'm always open to new job opportunities like this. I just didn't think it would be in service of the... The Usurpers is the first major side quest we're encountering in the game. It's relatively lengthy and pretty open-ended. You can learn or miss certain information based on how tricky or crafty you are in extracting information out of characters.
Deputy Star Marshal Hyder has ordered an officer to meet with a smuggler to purchase armaments. Hyder believes he must circumvent the bureaucracy to maintain the condition of the Defense Armada. She is correct. The Lion's Guard takes the lion's share. Confront this officer, arrest them, or kill them if they resist, destroy their fleet and keep the smuggled weapons. I don't care.
Starsector writer David Baumgart says in a blog post that the core inspiration will probably be really obvious once you know it. But first, I wanted this character to be an absolute scumbag. Totally evil, untrustworthy, a villain. He's running the fascist secret police. He's a bad dude. At the risk of invoking a piece of media that did it better, here's Hans Landa from Inglourious Bastards. Macario isn't Landa, but I wanted the sense of a weird evil guy who is having fun in his weird evil job. We find the target patrol easy enough, deliver the arrest warrant, and the officer in charge is nonplussed. I can tell she isn't just willing to turn herself in and that this might escalate into a fight. We sort of expected this, seeing as I made sure to wait until the patrol was clear of any nearby allies. But I'm not one to waste good ordnance when it doesn't need to be wasted. I spend one of my precious story points to have our comms officer transmit the warrant to every crew member in her fleet. Before long, the channel from the patrol leader goes to static. When it returns, a slightly smug, different officer affirms that he's now in control and that our target is currently en route to our flagship. Glory to the Lion of Syndria, death to traitors! Same to you, bud.
The purpose of this is to draw out Hyder. She will want to confront and eliminate you herself due to the sensitive nature of the matter. This is your opening. Explain yourself as acting upon my orders for the Diktat, or representing a weapons supplier seeking to replace her previous contact. I'm sure you'll come up with something good. The point is you'll have her attention, and you'll have her compromised. Find out her intentions. If she is willing to engage in open treason, or if pushed, we'll side with myself, the legitimate authority in the upcoming struggle.
Hyder is lingering around Syndria. Let's hope this goes over well. That fleet of hers is pretty big. She's rightfully pissed. Hyder honestly seems like one of the only normal people among this group of misfits and egomaniacs. A true believer, and not in the dogmatic, cultish sort of way. She's trying to stay the course and do her job. She says that as long as the Diktat is fighting itself, it'll never survive. I must do what I must to maintain our strength, even if I am put into an intolerable position. The last dutiful soldier trying to plug holes in a sinking ship. We're basically using her distrust of the system to extract usable data for Macario out of her. Sorry about kidnapping your officer, I'm just doing my job too. By the way, do you think your rival has leadership potential? What's immediately clear is that she doesn't trust Macario. Says he's a self-serving prick. And she's right. When asked if she'd report to him, she says she actually would, citing the clear chain of command. Dutiful soldier indeed. Dolos did tell us her superior is currently on life support and incapable of passing her the torch. She says that a supervisory council could declare him unfit and appoint his successor themselves, but that our employer has been preventing them from doing so. She's been doing the work of 2 people for some time now. We actually have her with her face in her hands at this point. Would that the good ones who followed Admiral Andrada all those years ago were not taken from us. Would that the worst did not rise to the top, she says. In spite of our orders, we leave her with the kernel of an idea. Sometimes the best leaders are those who don't want the position. Consider it. She looks at us for a long moment, unspeaking. The comm link is cut. Back to Syndria. Back to the web weaver. When we report to him, Macario basically confirms everything that Hyder accused him of. He owns holding back her promotion, admits freely to diverting supplies away from the Navy, and really doesn't care that she hates him.
Hyder will just have to use what she's got more effectively, and source her contraband more stealthily. I've found that many subordinates can thrive under pressure, subject to circumstances, naturally.
Oh, he's one of those kinds of managers, huh? Why am I not surprised? All in all, he seems pleased with our work and sets us right along towards our next assignment.
The Lion's Guard has its own intelligence section, of course. Wild about strong-jawed young men enforcing correct ideology and demonstrations of loyalty. Light on tradecraft. Sadly, one of Caden's agents on Umbra has been working for the insurrectionists from the beginning. Take the agent by force. The level of discretion is up to you. You'll find that I supervise with a light hand, contrary to the lies told about me. If you need to raise a few Hebs from orbit to extract an agent, why, then I accept your professional judgment.
Umbra is the seat of the Asconian Revolutionary Council, and presumably used to be a legitimate opposition to the Diktat. The rebels were forced to make certain concessions, it would seem, in order to remain together. Umbra these days is a pirate market. Seems the movement is a little diluted. I spent another story point here. I'm being pretty liberal with them, yeah, but they're burning a hole in my pocket. This is one of those situations where I'm going to be sitting on a treasure trove of them by the end of the playthrough, if I don't get rid of them now. Through some kind of verbal magic, we managed to convince the revolutionary we get in contact with that their double agent is in actuality a triple agent working for Macario. To really make it stick, we give the guy some insider information, aka probably junk data from the IntSec database. We tell him that their guy has been feeding the Diktat info. He actually, somehow, starts to believe it. Man, this espionage stuff is confusing. He asks us who we're working for, and to me, the Hegemony option sounds like the most convincing, so I go with that. In the interest of securing an ally with a major power, he hands over our men. Easy peasy. I think a story-related pirate fleet tries to chase us down here, but we're just too damn fast for them. That's why you always keep your drive speed high, kids.
Once Caden calms down, he will approve of you cleaning up this embarrassment. You'll see. Just let him think he's in charge, that's all it takes. How long have you known about this? You're not without hope, Captain.
Horatio Caden, leader of the elite Lion's Guard, a force described by Hyder as an overblown parade fleet. He puts up all the usual bells and whistles, but once we catch him up to speed, he's more than willing to talk shop with us. When we tell him Macario is ensuring the loyalty of key figures, Caden gets serious with us. He calls himself Andrada's right hand, waxes on and on about his spiritual cleansing induced by total submission to transcendent Andradan ideology. The real interesting part is his total assurance that he's the clear option to succeed the great leader when he finally croaks. When I reign, the slack shall be tightened, he says. Yeah, Hyder is clearly the realist in this power struggle. This guy's saying prayers and casting spells. On the subject of Hyder's supply issues, Horatio says that she does not burn with the passion for Andradan ideology as is fitting for senior officers. What, because she doesn't drink the Kool-Aid, I guess? Wait, is that a dated reference? Do Zoomers know about Jonestown? I might have to put a modern spin on that one. For slightly, maybe, sorta, almost suggesting criticism of the Lion's Guard, Caden says we should mind our open talk, and that it could be considered support of terrorism. What a guy. We hit him with the classic and bounce. Back to the Commandant. We inform the Chief High Inspector that he's got nothing to worry about with his soon-to-be puppet Emperor, to which he almost seems to be disappointed. Disappointed that there isn't a snag or a reason to cut somebody into tiny little pieces. Almost like it wasn't enough of a challenge for him. He segues from that right into talking about how he's thankful for the inventiveness of Luddic zealots and the Hegemony's meddling. He's talking about terrorists and counterintelligence operations here, folks. This guy should be on a list. Come to think of it, I think he actually is, you know. His gloating is interrupted by some kind of comms alert. He suddenly gets uncharacteristically serious. Work's not done yet.
A matter of great urgency has arisen. One of my agents who has been working in Tritachyon space is being pursued. They have information of enormous value. Your reward upon securing the integrity of this information and, secondarily, this agent, would be commensurate with the value of said information. That value is immense.
His hesitancy to use the word agent with this particular individual is interesting. Getting cozy with the Resident Evil megacorporation, are we, Dolos? We head to the Fringe jump point where we're supposed to meet with Macario's man. What we find there is a pissed hostile bounty hunter and a fresh field of debris. We sneak our way into the field and track down the charred corpse that used to be our guy. We bring him on board and pry a data core from his cold, dead hands. Our tech specialist can't access the encrypted files inside, but we can access some readable metadata. And here we have our first serious mythological reference to untangle. First, let's get the rest of the information from this interaction. Our tech officer says that each of these encrypted archives were created over a period of a month, back in cycle 182. This would date the files back to right after the conclusion of the Asconia crisis, at the birth of the Syndrian Diktat. Every file except Andrada Perseus was updated within the last week or so. They continue and say that Andrada Perseus hasn't been updated since near the end of cycle 205, as if a telemetry feed had stopped, or lost contact, or someone died, adds Guy. Okay, got it. Let's go back a couple steps. We're getting into the mythos here, at least as much as I deign to insofar as it's relevant to talking about Starsector. I'm not an ancient Greek mythological expert. I word vomit nonsense on the internet about video games, for God's sake. I'm not a primary source. That being said, I try to read as much as I could and do my due diligence. Perseus was a hero from Greek mythology, slayed Medusa, saved Andromeda. That much is common knowledge, but Perseus was also the purported progenitor of the Mycenaean Perseid dynasty, as the classical Greek myths tell it. Okay, so what's with the list? If we presume this is some stolen or possibly shared intel from Tritac concerning the power struggle in Asconia, we can safely assume that Andrada Perseus is in reference to the man himself. Macario said earlier that Andrada's opinion on his machinations was no longer relevant. We already assumed that meant Philip was probably dead. But what this suggests is that the Great Leader has been out of action since cycle 205. The game starts partway through cycle 206. By the time that I got to this quest line, it's already cycle 212. This means that in my game, Andrada has been dead, or otherwise incapacitated, but let's face it, he's dead, for 6 or 7 years. Macario has probably been cleaning house for a while now. That's the easy bit, but what about these other names? I'll fully admit that the name choices here might only be skin deep. Each of the names on this list could probably be tied to a number of different factions or characters, but there's enough connective tissue with some of these names that some intentionality is there. Regardless, I'm fairly certain that the point is that it's supposed to get your mind working about who these people, the successors of Andrada, could possibly be. Like, for example, Hercules, the Romanized version of Heracles. Heracles was technically the half-brother of Perseus, with both of them having been sired by Zeus. Heracles was a Chad, let's get that up and out straight up front. Extraordinary strength, courage, he fucked good, ladies and dudes. Used his wits when his rockin' muscles couldn't cut it. Good with kids, was known for the labors of Heracles, in which he went on a fucking tear and killed a bunch of mythological beasts, sometimes with his bare hands. Jesus, leave some fucking hole for the rest of us, dude. By conquering dangerous, archaic forces, he is said to have made the world safe for mankind. Sweet, but is anyone else detecting a tinge of irony here? Like, all this shit, if applied to a real guy, would be too good to be true. Maybe they'd have to be a self-centered douchebag who surrounds themselves with a cult of personality. Horatio Caden? Maybe? I mean, that's certainly one interpretation, but Pericles is interesting. I think I have a definite answer for this one. He turned the Delian League, a confederacy of city-states, into a puppet empire of Athens for a period of time. The purpose of the League was apparently to band the myriad Greek states together against the common enemy of the Persian Empire. Not the, whatever. In practice, however, Athens made out pretty alright in this deal. Oh, well, hold on, this is fun. Around 447 BC, Clearchus proposed the coinage decree, which proposed Athenian silver, coinage, weight, and measures on all of the allies. According to one of the decree's most stringent provisions, surplus from a minting operation was to go into a special fund, and anyone proposing to use it otherwise was subject to the death penalty. It was from the Alliance's treasury that Pericles drew the funds necessary to enable his ambitious building plan centered on the Periclean Acropolis, which included the Propylae, the Parthenon, and the golden statue of Athena, sculpted by Pericles' friend Phidias. Angelos Vlachos, a Greek academician, points out that the use of the Alliance's treasury, initiated and executed by Pericles, is one of the largest embezzlements in human history. Holy shit, dude! Yeah, we haven't discussed them at length yet, but that could really only be the Persian League. Oh, sorry, the Persean League. God damn it. I could go into real detail about each of these entries, but in the interest of time, I'll cut it short. Otherwise, this part of the video would end up being several pages of speculation longer. Here's what I came up with. Judge it as you see fit. We put our history lesson aside and get the data core back to Macario. Our conversation is unusually brief. Makes sense. What else does he really need from us at this point?
I would not be so naive as to ask you to delete your copy of this data. I'm sure your people are quite capable of creating a thorough charade of compliance. What happened to Perseus? Have I so underestimated you? There will come a time when decisions must be made, dear Captain. I trust you have gained some appreciation for my generous leadership style. You mentioned an experimental ship hull in our previous conversation. Did I? Mercenary to the end, eh? I'll have arrangements made. I am so pleased that you value what I can provide. This will be important. And soon. Don't you see, Captain? I have no need to emblazon my face upon history. Merely to direct it. Correct it. Trim loose ends which hold us back, tie us down. That is all, Captain. For now. I'm sure we shall speak again soon.
Macario transfers us 150,000 credits and a capital-grade battlecruiser, an Executor. This is almost a joke in and of itself. This ship sucks, but we'll find a use for it later. It would seem that our work with the Ministry of Internal Security has come to a close. Of the Usurpers as a whole, Baumgart says, "Have you ever been in a toxic work environment with variously insane managers/executives who are under tons of pressure? Just extend those dynamics a bit and that's all you need to get this story. Similarly, have you ever witnessed someone who is very good at their job, or considered good at their job, massively messing up doing that job? It certainly happens all the time, and happens throughout history. And I think examining the dynamics that surround massive failure and its fallout are absolutely fascinating." He also says that Macario's in-game portrait is ironically based off of author George Orwell. Oh yeah. I can't unsee that now. Although this side quest is fairly self-contained, it does kick off what will become a running side gag that I've dreamed up. It's called Who Has the Best Spy Network? As you'll see, the main quest and major side quests will have us rubbing elbows with a lot of clandestine organizations in the sector, and it feels that some run a little cleaner than others. So, how does the Diktats shape up? Well, outside of Macario's operation, it seems really leaky. The Lions Guard intelligence net seems pretty poor, if they were able to be infiltrated by as fractured an outfit as the ARC. Now, Dolos, on the other hand, is a menace. The game says it pretty clearly. You can tell he is enjoying this. The guy's a freak. This is, however, under the extended umbrella of the Asconia crisis. We're seeing Macario operating in his own messy backyard. Sure, you can spend all day pulling the legs off ants, burning them with little magnifying glasses and shit, but what happens when you encounter an ant that's like twice your size, with like 3 magnifying glasses to your 1? It's highly likely that he's getting fed intel from Tritac. They're probably arming him in order to use the Syndrian Diktat as a buffer state against the Hegemony. Come to think of it, we haven't actually seen how he's been faring against other major intelligence communities. In fact, from the descriptions of the weapons we've been getting off him, it seems like the Hegemony is well aware of their development programs. They've gone so far as to deem one of their projects such a combat liability that no interference was needed on their part. Quote, Hedge Int assets report test firing displays dramatic power output, but weapon system integration projected to reduce enemy warfighting capability and fleet action due to doctrinal inefficacy. Recommend no sabotage operation. AKA, their ships are already flux inefficient. Now they're slapping giant flux-hungry guns on them. They're kneecapping themselves. Let them do it. I'm not sure Macario is capable of subverting or controlling via the shadows literally every single functioning office of the government. All the time, for years. I suppose there will be people along the way who get it and just sort of accept that he's the man and not Caden. I'm sure you could also pay a good portion of them off, but how far can you really get when you have to spend extra time and resources infiltrating and writing the ships of all of your contemporaries? Shit, he's already making one portion of his own navy worse by his own admission, just because he wanted to make sure Hyder was loyal? This is a big house of cards. A neighboring power with the means could blow it over if they had the free time and space to operate. Macario said it himself. We're disrupting the delicate balance of power. What would happen if the Diktat were no longer of use to Tritac, or if the League no longer valued them as an asset, freeing up the Hegemony to walk in and take the place back? But who knows? Dolos Macario is one tricky bastard, and we haven't really seen what he'll do with his back up against the wall. That's a question for another day, I guess. With our detour and Asconia complete, we pick up our conquest and return back to base. Gotta admit, I'm not very confident flying the Conquest. I'm a dirty strafe lock enjoyer, so broadsiders aren't my typical wheelhouse. Plus, my build kind of sucks. The idea was to use maneuvering jets to get the dual hammer barrages in position once the side-facing guns did their work. In practice, however, it proved a little finicky. I never really mastered this build or rubbed my last couple brain cells together to fix the damn thing. I was really married to the hammers for some reason. Whatever, broadsiders are for chumps anyway. I was struggling to find a fiction for my own faction at this point, you know how it is, but I eventually settled on Savenberg Starworks, a private corporation and materials solution provider. Savenberg Station, in orbit around the gas giant Savenberg, is on track to become a frontier refueling station and refining hub. Most of the essential infrastructure is in place, and we've just got to keep the stability stable and stave off any pirate threats. Time is now the only barrier between us and some proper passive income. But hold on, why am I getting the oddest feeling of deja vu? I feel like we're forgetting somebody. Wasn't there a loose end we picked up back there somewhere? Oh yeah, that's right.
You, wanted to see me? Captain?
Yes. Sit.
Right?
Johnny Freight, an alias. Real name Melvin Scruggs. Born to a penniless junk trader based out of Arcadia. Captain of a prominent transport fleet. Known smuggler. Attempted to found an independent colony. Denied hegemony charter status, reasoning unstated. Mysteriously disappeared when your fleet and colony were destroyed following a major pirate incursion.
How did you...
Don't look surprised. You were a topic of some conversation in certain circles. For a time, it pays in our business to keep informed on current events, as I'm sure you know. But the question nags at me. What do I do with you, Mr. Freight? There is a sizable bounty on your head. My contacts within the Hegemony would certainly be pleased to see you, but that solution does not serve my interests. Your track record proves that you are a man of some ability. Resourceful, yes, but what I cannot parse is why I should place any significant trust in you. It seems indeed at every impasse you chose the plan that would enrich yourself, provide you certain comforts. I do not see a history of good work ethic, or sound long-term planning reflected in your actions.
Now, hold on a minute, that's just...
But if you were to serve under my command, dutifully, I am willing to offer you a second chance. I am not one to dispose of useful assets. I have already hosted you graciously aboard my flagship for some time now. If I were to offer you a command post aboard one of my frigates, would you treat that job with the appropriate degree of professionalism?
I'm interested.
Good. A shuttle will ferry you to a frigate of your choosing when you're ready to depart. I've compiled a list of vessels for you to mull over. Don't take too long, Captain. We will be underway again shortly, and I'll waste no time on account of your indecisiveness. Choose wisely.
Can do, boss.
But wait a minute, that can't be right. That runtime down there says that the video's almost over, and we haven't even remotely finished talking about the game. We're probably only a third of the way through the main plot. We've only talked about 2 of the 5 major factions. How the hell are we going to cover all that stuff before... Oh no. Don't you do it again, you son of a bitch. This channel is generously funded by our patrons. Special thanks to Thomas Bomber, Empire Doom, Interesting Squirrel, Galbatrix, Original Peter, Trench Gun, Eggs and Toast, Ethan, Jesse Watson, Victor Sales, Alfarius Omegon, Joseph McClelland, Teeth, Braden King, Kaylee, Tsar Nicholas II, Seamus Folan, Wills6529, and Dastardly Jack. I feel like it's somewhat of a tradition at this point for me to apologize for how long these Starsector videos take to put together. I don't know what it is. I think Starsector does something in my brain. It makes me want to go high effort. I have no idea why. I think it's because that original Starsector video was sort of the series that cemented the idea that this channel could become something more than just me goofing off. So I don't know. I think I feel a certain level of duty to cover this game. And I do love it. It's something that brings a lot out of me. But I just wanted to say, if you've made it all the way to the end of this video, thanks for watching. Consider checking out the Patreon, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye-bye.